In the dark underbelly of society, there are monsters who walk among us. They blend in, they hide in plain sight, and then they strike. This is the story of one of China's most terrifying serial killers, Wang Qiang, a man who evaded authorities for years, leaving a trail of death and suffering. His crimes were so heinous that even seasoned investigators were left in shock. Today, we take a deep dive into the mind of a predator, a man who committed at least 45 murders, 10 essays, and 34 robberies. Stay with us to uncover the horrifying crimes of Wang Qiang, how he was finally caught, and what led him down his path of unimaginable cruelty. Wang Qiang was born in January 16, 1975, in Budayang town. But unlike other children, his life was never filled with joy and laughter. Instead, it was filled with pain, abuse, and survival. His father was an alcoholic and a gambler, an unpredictable man who showed no mercy to his son. Wang was beaten regularly, deprived of love, and denied education. His childhood was anything but normal. His mother, on the other hand, was caring towards Wang, but she could not persist to live with his father and left when Wang was just 5 years old, leaving him to destitute of his father's care. And that did not go well for Wang, as the neglect and abuse carried on and got worse since his mother had left. By the age of 10, Wang's father had enough of him and he decided to send him off to his grandparents. And as soon as he got there, his grandparents decided to send him straight to school because they believed that would resolve his attitude and anger problems, and he would be able to form some sort of relationships with other people as well. But when other kids realized they knew Wang's family, and especially when they found out that his father was sent down to prison due to gambling and alcohol-induced shenanigans, that quickly went to bullying. And of course, that led Wang to wanting to quit school, which he did at the age of 13. And that led to his grandparents to become very resentful towards him and start saying very hurtful things. And one of the most hurtful things that they had ever said to him was, quote, "Other people commit unaliving. Why don't you do the same by now?" End quote. So after that, Wang, of course, decided, well, I'm better off on the streets than I am here, since nobody wants me here either. He thought, it can't be any worse than this. And at the age of 15, Wang decided that he was ready to leave for the streets. And in his eyes, he believed that they are the same people as what he is, and there would be a grand community of very welcoming people. Unfortunately, was not the reality. Is not like that whatsoever. And when he went on the streets, he usually stayed at a railway station where he did meet other children who had been abandoned, and of course, older people in there as well. He did get beaten quite regular, and at one point he got beaten to near death, and he was taken to a hospital. Police, taking his accounts of what happened, but Wang would not tell him who was involved, why they was involved, or anything basically. And when he come out, there was a stranger that had approached Wang, and he told him that he had been watching him for a while at this point, which was nearly a year. And he said that he would let him stay with him if he wanted to. And when he got to his house, the stranger taught him that only by stealing will you get ahead. And this became the twisted motto that would shape Wang's future. And of course, soon enough, he turned to crime. Yep, and that he believed his life was brilliant. He was stealing, he was bringing in the money, he had roof over his head, he had food, there was no abuse. In his eyes, this was the happiest he had ever been. At that point, he thought, like, this is it. This is the great way to go, because especially since nobody were tormenting him in any way possible. And then a year later, at 16, Wang was caught. He was caught pickpocketing, and he was sentenced to 2 years in labor camp. But instead of rehabilitating him, the prison experience made him even more dangerous. By the time he was released, he was ready to take his crime to a whole new level. Even though he was ready by then, but in the midst of his sentence, he wrote some letters to his mother, hoping that she would be willing to help him, take him in. Like, he believed that his mother was his last person, because she was the only one that ever gave him love and any sort of care um, in his eyes. But his letters always bounce back. So, it usually happens whether the sender, either doesn't want him or nobody lives at that address. But he believed that she sent him back and not the fact that she didn't live there anymore. So that put a dot into that. He thought, well, that's it. If my mother doesn't care about me, why would anybody else? So when Wang was released in 1995, that's when he became a predator. He developed a horrifying pattern, stalking parks and isolated areas, targeting vulnerable women and unsuspecting men. He would rob, assault, and in worst cases, murder them. Wang did say that he initially had no interest in killing anyone, but when this one particular couple was being robbed by him, a young man said to him, quote, "I'm too young, don't kill me, my parents are still alive," end quote. And Wang said it made him snap. He just could not help himself whatsoever, and he stabbed the young man several times. And that was when the realization of satisfaction came over him. And of course, that was the next turning point of his criminal history. And in between his killings, he did meet a woman. He got married in 2001. He had a child. But his marriage didn't last very long, and his wife divorced him in 2003. And when he got married, he said to himself that he will not commit any crimes, he will set himself straight, especially since he had a child. He believed he's got to be the best example that he could ever be. Like, there is no hate, there is no anger, he's finally happy, he's got the family he always dreamed about. But unfortunately, when his wife divorced him in 2003, that's when it took another turn and he became even more hateful, more resentful, and he just wanted to make everybody else hurt just as much as what he did. So some of his victims were also essayed post-mortem. He seemed to have derived pleasure from their suffering, and authorities were desperate to catch him, as at one point there were 6 couples killed in an area within 3 days. And as you can imagine, that caused a major panic amongst the communities around, not knowing who is doing it, why they're doing this. And you can imagine, obviously, that police were in the spotlight about this, and not in a good way either. They had nothing, they didn't know who was doing it, why they were doing it, nobody to pinpoint at all. And especially the fact that it was so random. They weren't just people that were in the houses. There were people murdered in parks, in places. They were so randomly, there was nothing connecting them whatsoever. Of course, that made it especially, hard to do anything, for him to look for anything. And there was loads of reports done. There were sketches done of the criminal that they believed they had seen that were leaving the scene or came back around. But we do also know that Wang sometimes what he would do, um, he would leave the property and he would stand around with a crowd of people and he would look what police are doing. He would talk to police officers, pretending to be just a normal citizen, like, just going about his day, looking petrified and horrified, talking to them and saying, who do you think has done it? How do you think they've done it? And what are you doing? And police did tell him actually a lot of things to say that he was just a random citizen on the street. And, they did give out actually quite a bit of information to him each time. Uh, but yeah, I mean, how confident can you be if you killed someone, jumped out of their house, and you stood there and you just. And it's not just the fact that he was so confident; he was very arrogant about it as well. It was only on July 14th, by chance, did anybody even find out who it could be, because one of the criminals that was involved with one of the crimes with Wang had told police officers he knew who the mysterious killer was. And they took Wang straight into custody, you know, um, and when he was arrested, investigators weren't prepared what they were about to uncover. Even though initially Wang declined his involvement, especially in any essay and murder, he was adamant that it wasn't him, they had a wrong guy, and, they believe in another criminal. So, what does that say? You would be very arrogant to say, that you're very desperate to believe a criminal that is whoever they say it is. But eventually he did start talking, and talk he did. He told police about crimes they didn't even know that happened due to locations, and the victims were never discovered, like their bodies weren't discovered. Like I said, just down to location of where it happened. And this, of course, made police horrified as they didn't realize there were bodies, like actual bodies, that they're missing. And the severe brutality of his crimes made their stomachs churn. And as you obviously could probably, imagine, at this point, he was getting very proud of himself. He was already very arrogant, and now he was getting very proud. He even managed to get himself a nickname in prison by other inmates. They gave him a nickname of Number 54 Super Killer. And he managed to brag to inmates that he got so good at killing and robbing and assaying that he would be in and out of property in 20 minutes and be on his way to work. One of his routines, as he said, was go to work, eat, rob, then get home, go to bed, be ready for work next day. And Wang was very casual about it all, like it was just a everyday chore, that you do, like washing pots. He had no remorse. Of course, as you can tell by his arrogance and this sheer confidence that he had in himself, and he didn't do anything wrong. He was real happy about it all. Yeah, it's crazy, really. He said that the only time he was ever close to being truly happy was by causing this pain and suffering by murdering people. Mm. Police did ask, though, how he managed to attack successfully so many times, and nobody got away. And Wang did say that he had some people help him, that some friends that he made in prison, and the fact that he was very, in his eyes, he said he was very normal looking and the least intimidating person that you could see on the streets. And that gave him the advantage of it all. He did give out a couple of names of people who were involved with him, but he didn't give out everyone's what he says, because he said he couldn't remember who went with him when, basically. I mean, it's truly horrific. Like, he had no remorse, no empathy. It is horrible. when people, are like that. It took police all in all a year and a half to get all the information they deemed necessary. And to the end, they had the number of 45 people that were all connected to Wang, including DNA evidence that was used and found. And then on March 23rd, 2005, Wang Qiang stood trial for his monstrous crimes. Of course, the court wasted no time and he was sentenced to death. But one of the things that was in the newspaper actually is in the midst of his trial, his own lawyer said that he hates this man, but in the eyes of the law, he's the man that needs help at this moment. So, obviously, you already knew, and everybody knew that pretty much that he's going to be sentenced to death, even when the lawyer openly said that he hates him. Like, he hates him, but he's just here to do a job. It's, I've never heard of anybody else's lawyer saying that. And then on November 17th, 2005, he was executed by firing squad in Shenyang. And that was where his horror story ended. For the families of his victims, justice was bittersweet. Their loved ones could never return again, but at least the man that was behind this was dead. Wang Guang's story is a chilling reminder of how childhood trauma can shape a person's future. While there is no excuse for his crimes, his upbringing played a major role in turning him into a killer. Although many other individuals have faced same hardship, pain, neglect, abuse, but they have found the strength to turn their lives around. They chose healing, redemption, and future of hope. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe. It's all appreciated, and goodbye.